CO. What's happening?
OCO.
Moment. Hey, thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Appreciate you, Jim. OCO.
Damn.
Yes, folks. Yes,
What's
ma'am.
happening?
Yes, sir.
Well, y'all, it's a beautiful day in Indian country. What a lovely, lovely day here in Pennsylvania. I got to tell you, Swarthmore is absolutely beautiful. The grounds, breathtaking, natural landscape. The air is fresh. Happened to be a beautiful sunny day today. You can see the foliage, but still feel the warmth. It is absolutely gorgeous here, this campus. I wonder if it was this serene 100 years ago, 150 years ago. Really, really beautiful place. Really beautiful place. Yep.
Yeah. Real glad to have y'all here in Okihocken and Lenape-Hocken territory. There's so much history, not just about the American Indians, but also, of course, about the swarty Europeans. Shout out as well to Benjamin West. Benjamin West is a famed British American painter whose house was actually located here at Swarthmore at the south portion of campus. And we'll touch a little bit as well on Benjamin West's influence, not just in Britain, but also here in America. So looking forward to unpacking that with y'all.
Absolutely. Benjamin West, everybody know that surname. We'll talk a little later. I guess June going to give you a little synopsis about the photo that everybody's familiar with. You may just not know that it's him.
Yep, we're going to go into that a little later towards the end of the program, but I appreciate everybody. Thank you for showing up, and happy Indigenous Peoples Day weekend. So looking forward to spending this time with y'all.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So lesser known facts, black, white, and red all over. We're going to talk about the hijack from some of its more primitive beginnings, right? And I say primitive because it started a lot longer than people think with them landing on our shores here in North America. How about October of 1492, when the Holy Roman Emperor Isabel and Castile sent out Colonial to check on the people of God and see what it was that we had going on over here. And with that came some people, some very interesting people that came to the Americas as slaves from Europe. And I think because they were enslaved several times in several different places that you kind of lose track of them. And at this point, you just call them the white, right? Or the colonizer. But they were actually the slaves before they got to the colonizer. And now, generations later, they went from colonizer to chief. And we're going to talk a little bit about how that started, definitely with the misconception of how You can't base it off of skin color, because ethnicity, nationality, heritage, all different areas that need to be explored and compartmentalized. They're not just one big thing. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I wanted to say.
And I think even on the aspect of colonizer to chief, we even have some folks that ended up going from colonizer to king in this hemisphere. So we're even going to unpack those aspects of, I think, those aspects of the West Indies, the Hispaniola, and how certain folks who we may be thinking are actually Negro, that actually come from Europe. So we want to unpack a lot of those nuggets today as well.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Well, we can go back to the 1300s, and we're going to go through some etymology, just, because people seem to have a hard time. And we want it to be clear that this isn't our opinion, right? We are literally just going to use the dictionary and the etymology and perhaps a few maps to kind of make everything solid, right? Let's start with that. And this one map here, I'm going to pull up. Now, I told y'all last year, we did a lecture regarding some of these maps and showed you that ancient Kemet is not fixated near Egypt, right? It's not fixated near where people would have considered Nubia. And it's actually going to go back to, again, these specific families that had, I don't know, they may not have called them a dynasty, but I would say that they were definitely a force.
Absolutely.
And because there's a lot of so-called Black European lineage, that they kind of just keep it a hush. But they are very, very much European into the bloodline, right? 1 second. So let's get this. Let me get this to a little screen share.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna put this map up. This map is important, just like that map from Princeton that we know and love. Go.
We'll find a lot of interesting tidbits on this map as well.
Yes, indeed. Okay. Let's bring it up. Now, this is the Treaty of Brittany in the 1300s. Again, earlier we spoke about how in Spain, they don't speak Spanish. They speak Navarro. They speak Aragon. They speak Castilian. They speak, Catalina.
Mm-hmm.
They speak Basque, Romani. There's a lot going on to the languages there, but they do not speak Spanish. More importantly, Spanish is somewhat, for some reason, only attached to the Americas, so-called America.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very interesting. But here in this map from the 1300s, I want you to see where the guineas come from. And here's Aragon. If you can see the cursor, you may see the cursor. Aragon down here at the bottom. And you see a lot of these names here that you'll find in Louisiana, right? Toulouse, Dauphine, right? Marie Dauphine, those names.
Exactly.
Anjou, like the Anjou sauce, right? That they put over pot roast. And here's Brittany, and then you have Normandy up at the top. In Normandy, Normans are actual people. They're a people, a tribe, a family, a crest, a crown. Here you go with the Artois. You have the Flanders, Boulogne, right?
If you go to the west as well, you see Jersey, that small island over there.
Yeah, there's Jersey here. Right in between Brittany and Old Normandy. And then you have the House of Burgundy over here to the east, somewhere between, what is that, 5 and 45 degrees. Somewhere in between there, 5 and 43. Parallel, longitude, latitude. Then you see Geneva, and over here to the right is the Savoy. And the Savoy is under the Italian protectorate. That is the House of Savoy out of Italy. And also, some of those descendants from the House of Savoy are also your 1619 Negroes, flash forward 150 years later. And we're going to get into that. But I definitely want y'all to pay attention to this little map here.
And it's interesting because when you bring up that House of Savoy, that even ties into the whole 100 Years' War with Charles V.
Absolutely. And then you see Maine over here next to Orleans. Maine was also a state where these same French Britons or Brits, right, or AKA your Acadians, end up in Nova Scotia, what they're now calling Canada, Newfoundland, what have you, Acadia. And these are essentially where a lot of your Cajuns came from. Cajuns also differ from Creoles, even though Creoles and Cajuns all descend from Europeans. We're talking about the ones with the Scottish descent and have had or come from descent of the actual Acadians, the Scotians, descendants of Scotia. In which case, that would include some of the Eskimo lineage. You know, Greenland is also a part of America, much to people's chagrin. It is, and it just happens to be one of the main strongholds that the Dutch did not have to give back when they surrendered Manhattan and the other territories. Doc, what did you
I just put if you wanted to pull up that map of the New World, talking about some of that New France drop that you was just alluding to.
New France, yeah. Hold on one second. Let me get the map.
And I think it's interesting too when we talk about the Dutch and just their influence here. Since we're in Pennsylvania, their influence in Pennsylvania before, you know, the English basically took it over. And even in a lot of the early history books here in Delaware County and even in the state of Delaware, you have instances where Sir Robert Carr, you know, was in charge of the ship Guinea, and how when the English conquistadors took over, how a lot of those Dutch soldiers and citizens were turned into quote unquote slaves and sent to the Virginia colony.
Where would they be sent to if they were sent from somewhere else to the Virginia colony? Can you explain where they were coming from?
Well, they were in transit, maritime law, so admiralty law, so, you know, high law of the seas. So you know, because that they were taken over, you know, they became property of whoever, you know, whichever conquistador at this time would have been the Anglo-Saxons, the English, and they were sent to a quote unquote British or English colony, which at that time would have been Virginia.
Yeah. And of course, at this time, Virginia can include anywhere from Pennsylvania, Jamestown,
Right.
Indiana, Ohio,
Kentucky,
West Virginia. Yeah. What's being claimed as Virginia land at that point is still up for other discussions, I would say, because the territory is really vast. And then this is still even prior to the Plymouth colony, right? Because for a long time, there was only two, the Virginia colony and the Plymouth colony, which came after. Yep. Hold on, let me get that map. What year was that New World map, Doc?
That map. Give me just a moment.
You got it.
This map does not have a date on it. I apologize.
That's okay. You can share the screen and show them since you have it up. Mm-hmm.
Why are you pulling that up?
Thanks for that, John.
Appreciate you, John.
Yep, anytime.
It's right here. Well, I thought it was. Would you be able to pull it up more? Put the link in the chat.
Oh, sure. Yeah, there we go. Hold on. I got it. Mm-hmm. Okay. There we go.
Now, from the other map that Phoenix just showed us, this is Turtle Island, north end part of Latin America, Central America, Lower Antilles, all that. So if you look at the top of this map, we'll already see some similarities, right? If you look at La Nova Franza, that's nothing but France. You just saw that on the past map with the Treaty of Brittany.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And there's really no connection. Well, they haven't merged yet, Canada and France, because Canada still is just a territory.
Mm-hmm. That was still being ran by the Hudson Bay Company.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
So, we even look at, you go down and you see Nova France as well in the ocean. Even if you come down to modern day Haiti and Dominican Republic, you see what's that? Spaniola.
Spaniola. Period.
Mm-hmm.
Not no AT. That didn't come until later. Still a name, not being funny, because that's still a name that the people that's indigenous to that land. And we're gonna spin that block too. But Spaniola and of course La Florida is here. And it's interesting. You have Tantutak here in modern day Mexico, right? And then flash forward 150 years later, you have the Treaty of Pontotoc, right? The Chickasaw line. We're going to get into that later on in life. And then, of course, with all of these old nostalgic maps, y'all see they always got some weird looking dinosaur, unbelievable creature in these different portions of the Atlantic Ocean. You don't really see too much going on in the Pacific, but they make sure to show you some sort of King Neptune's headache inside the Atlantic, always indicating that something is really wrong with it. Something else is happening there other than water just being wet.
Absolutely.
All map makers and cartographers and topographers, for the most part, have some sort of monster, and they're always mostly positioned in the Atlantic. I don't know. You tell me why.
It's just interesting. Even look at the at first I was like, oh, those are mounds. And then I'm like, well, no, that's probably the Appalachians.
Right. Didn't even get there yet. But you see with the Apishans, in Terra Cognita. And then you see all these other tribes, right? Sierra Nevada still present. Puerto San Michael. There is no California. Right? And look at how they're spelling Japan over here.
Wow.
Giapan. Oh, guess there was no letter J yet, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Mare del Manji.
Coco de Meshite. Right? Almost like the cacique. The Mexique. The Chucho. Spanish variations of
Cholima.
Now they're calling most of this La Florida, right? But also, if you notice this largatory, like where Florida is still La Florida. But almost all of the Midwest is also Florida.
I noticed that.
By way of Spain. Right? Over here. Let's see. And St. Helena is here, right? In antiquity dated. St. Helena Island in South Carolina. Lots and lots of history there, not to be minimized. Mare del Sur. South.
You know what I thought it was interesting too? Up in the right-hand corner. In Canada, the most eastern provinces are called the Maritimes, and that consists of Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, and also New Labrador. So I thought it was interesting that they have Labrador over here and everything.
Right. You want to break down that word?
Labrador, it sounds a little at first I was thinking about the dog breed, but now I'm kind
Labrador
of like,
Retriever, right?
yeah, now I'm like, okay, this sounds a little
Interesting. You
Spanish to
bring up
me.
the Labrador. Now, you know, there's some really extreme conditions there in
Oh,
Labrador.
absolutely.
Now, that little friendly little lassie, no, lassie's a collie. Collie
Yeah.
probably could survive. But a Labrador Retriever does not seem like a dog for that terrain. Isn't that interesting?
Actually, if you look at their paws and everything, their paws are webbed. So,
So they'll be able to swim.
absolutely.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they just don't look like survivor dogs, because you got to be in survivor mode.
Yeah, you do gotta have a lot of hair
Get around in Labrador.
up in them terrains and everything.
Absolutely. But a Labrador, you just never really paid it no mind.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on a second. Yeah, these maps. And let's go around. I want to go back to Guinea. I want to go back to the Guinea. And the reason being the etymology.
While you doing that, Phoenix,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna pull up this drop since you're going back to the Guinea on Benjamin West.
Right. Guinea, noun, former British coin in the 1660s from Guinea. I just showed y'all where Guinea was, right? Because the coins were first minted for British trade with Guinea, but soon in domestic use and with gold from Africa. The original Guinea was in use from 1663 to 1813. Let's see. The original Guinea was in use. Okay, hold on. Now here's Guinea. Region along the west coast of Africa, presumably from an African word, perhaps Tuareg, Agonor, Black people. Now here's the thing. When they say African word, what exactly is an African word if there is no African language other than the Dutch Afrikaans? Only the Afrikaans, Elon Musk folks,
Mm-hmm.
only the Afrikaans speak African, right? So
Yes,
we
ma'am.
thought. So when they say stuff like an African word, or even you look African, what does an African look like? If an African is an Afrikaans,
Are they talking about the Boers?
the
They talking
Afrikaners,
about the Dutch Afrikaans?
they would
talking.
have to
Oh, they talking about Charlize Theron.
something about
Grimes. They talking about Grimes, the from from South Africa. No.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
So
Elon Musk Team Humanity. You talking about them folks? Oh, all right. Okay.
as a derogatory term for an Italian, it is from Guinea Negro, Black person of mixed ancestry. Mixed with what? Applied to Italians probably because of their dark complexions relative to Northern Europeans. And after 1911, it was occasionally applied to Hispanics and Pacific Islanders as well. New Guinea was so named in 1546 by Spanish explorer Ignacio Ortiz de Retes in reference to the natives' dark skin and tightly curled hair. The guinea hen, 1570s, is a domestic fowl imported from there. So wait a minute. The guinea hen is not from Africa, it's from New Guinea.
Mm-hmm. which is the colony of France, right?
Sure is.
But the boy Ortiz was Franco-Spanish.
Franco-Spanish.
Because who was the regent at that time? Would it have been Charles V?
Carlos.
Charles IV? Carlos? Carlos it might have been Carlos IV.
Absolutely. In which case, Holy Roman Empire is involved, and Charles was also the Holy Roman Emperor. So now you have these instances where not only are they the Holy Roman Emperor, but he is also the King of Italy, the King of Great Britain, France, Ireland, Scotland, and then the Holy Roman Emperor. So he doesn't need to be called the King of Spain because he's the Holy Roman Emperor. He doesn't need to be called also the whatever number King of Italy because he's the Holy Roman Emperor. Doesn't need to be called the King of Austria, the Emperor of Austria, because he's already Holy Roman Emperor. And within that Holy Roman Empire, you have your so-called elite, the world's elite that took over, amalgamated and made sure that they tried their best to mix in and mingle and settle their asses on our lands.
Charles V, Holy Roman Emperor, reigned from
1519
to 1556.
I'm gonna put it up there for him.
And of course, we're just showing Wikipedia just as
so
Oriental with
hit
the
present.
content. Oh, hit present.
Yeah.
Not as an official source. Let's see that.
Oh, why isn't it letting you? You should be able to pick which one. It's okay.
Very odd. I'll drop it down here.
All right, drop it down.
Mhm.
I'll pull it up. You know, same way Napoleon. Not only is Napoleon the so-called emperor, and this is why another thing, I don't like you calling me empress. I don't like to be called empress. We're not emperors and empresses. That is a good indication that you stole somebody's land. You not only did you steal their land, but you took their military to do it.
And overthrew their whole political economic system. So
Right.
Yeah, I'm not feeling that emperor stuff.
Yeah, and you can only do that if you're faking like a friend, right? You're faking like an ally. So yeah. But here go your man. And you can keep in mind, rest assured, these is the paintings that survived. But keep in mind, Putin is going to have a whole different catalog of pictures of these exact same people, right? Because the Habsburgs and these empires. Say that again.
Talking about the folks in back of me,
The
right?
folks in back of you.
Look, they about same complexion as me.
Those
that's all Charles V folks. Yeah, Charles the First, Second, Third, Fourth. Yeah, all them.
And again, Austria, right? Holy Roman Empire, Archduke of Austria, King of Spain, Lord of the Netherlands. Spanish Netherlands, okay? So in New York, when the so-called Dutch are in New York, they are Habsburgs, Spanish Netherlands. Spanish Netherlands. Some of the reason why the Huguenots had to seek asylum, right? Their houses was getting burned down too. House of Burgundy, there's something going on. There's a different uprising with Germany. There is no Germany yet, but in these etymological words, don't we have a Germanic presence there lingering?
Oh, yeah.
So if we had Prussia initially, how did these languages end up Proto-Germanic when they're kind of the last people in the Union?
And how did the King of Prussia end up in Pennsylvania?
That's
what I'm trying to figure out.
Swartz. It's interesting. Interesting.
Swarthmore, King of Prussia. Yeah, it's all starting to make sense a little bit now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we're going to start running through some of these details. Hopefully the rest of them will be able to join us when the schedule and stuff permits. Yeah, because I think it's a beautiful day here. I really wish you guys could see this environment. The place is lovely. The place is lovely. And we need to definitely come back and look through some of these items in the library. The landscape, you will not be sorry. The landscape is absolutely beautiful around here too. But the information is priceless. And Pennsylvania, very forthcoming with a lot of things. So this whole weekend, Indigenous weekend, we will be here making sure we go through some of these wonderful spots with a fine-tooth comb because there's a lot of hidden treasures here. I'm pretty sure we're sitting on top of a mound right now. Isn't that what you said? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
We're sitting on top of a mound right now. Yeah, as with most places, and a lot of people don't even know they on Indian land, for real, for real.
You can tell by the energy, right?
Yes.
Just a very pleasant energy, very common, very positive.
These were not those soft Indians either. You can't. This doesn't feel melancholy. It feels like a really good vibe. It's not the melancholy, oh, they just did us so wrong. We done took some scalps here. Respectfully. Respectfully.
I wanted to read this real quick while you pull
Absolutely.
up the
Go
next
ahead.
source, Moan, just about Benjamin West and his connection to this area, right?
Would you reading the
This is from the Explorer PA history page. Unfortunately, I can't cast, so I did put the link in the chat. If either one of y'all want to pull it up.
What's that?
This is about Benjamin West. It's the last link.
Oh, yeah, here we go.
I'm going to read the last 3 paragraphs. It says, for most of his life, West painted grand historical and biblical paintings, such as the one that's in Junior Firewalker's PTR image, and biblical paintings of which Christ rejected and death on the pale horse belonging to the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts are representative, and Saul and the Witch of Endor at the Wadsworth Amphitheater, Hartford, Connecticut, is one of the best. Several painters of whose portraits of revolutionary leaders and history scenes, including Charles Wilson Peale, Rhode Island's Gilbert Stuart, and Connecticut's John Turnbull, all studied with West in London. Turnbull's death of General Warren at the Battle of Bunker Hill, Yale Art Gallery, New Haven, is clearly mounted on West's death of General Wolfe. Despite, or perhaps because of his lowly origins, West's arrogance and greed were as monumental as his canvases. He turned down a knighthood because he thought he deserved a hereditary peerage. Commissioned in 1800, that would have probably been simultaneously when Thomas Jefferson was just coming to power, as well as George III and Charlotte of Mecklenburg, right?
Yep.
By the Pennsylvania Hospital in Philadelphia to execute a large canvas. We now know the Pennsylvania Hospital of Philadelphia is now Hospital University of Pennsylvania, right, y'all? To execute a large canvas of Christ healing the sick. He sold it instead to the British institution, forerunner of the National Gallery, for, listen to this, y'all, 3,000 guineas. Reputedly the largest sum ever paid to an artist for a single work. Before he died, West found his paintings the butt of mockery by romantics who preferred a more intimate scale and more emotionally expressive works. Only great by the acre is how William Hazlitt judged West. Ironically, today he is best remembered for 2 early works that have become principal symbols of the continent he rejected.
That's interesting.
But he took them guineas.
I was gonna say, them guineas was working here, right?
They was
They
working.
was trying to phase out the wampum.
Yeah.
Yeah, trying to phase out the Roanoke.
Trying to get rid of that quahog.
What you got for Uncle Ben? John, you got something for Uncle Ben?
Well, since we going in with so Benjamin West, he's the painter who bridged nations. In the 18th century, a young boy from Pennsylvania will rise to become one of the most influential artists of his time. Just 1 second. Turn my camera off.
Oh, you want me to remove that? Hold on, I gotta move that. There you go.
Okay.
Now you can hit share. I don't know how to do it.
We all right. I don't know. It was up there. There we go.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna start over. In the 18th century, a young boy from Pennsylvania will rise to become one of the most influential artists of his time, painting not only the events of history, but bridging the gap between two nations, America and Britain. His name, Benjamin West. Born in 1738 into a Quaker family in the quiet town of Springfield, now Swarthmore, Benjamin West's artistic talent emerged early. It's said that he learned to paint using brushes made from cat hair and pigments from the land itself. Taught by local American Indians, his talent, nurtured in the Pennsylvania countryside, would soon carry him far beyond the American colonies. In 1760, with the support of Philadelphia patrons, West traveled to Europe, where he immersed himself in the grandeur of classical art. After transformative time in Italy, he settled in London in 1763, the heart of the art world. There, West's bold vision, his ability to blend modern realism with historical subjects caught the eye of none other than King George III. The most famous work, The Death of General Wolfe, shocked the art establishment. Instead of dressing his subjects in classical robes, West painted them in contemporary military uniforms. It was revolutionary, capturing not only the moment, but the truth of history itself. Art historian, this decision to portray modern heroes in contemporary clothing was groundbreaking. West essentially redefined the rules of historical painting. He made history feel real intimate. In 1772, West became the official painter to King George III, but his influence did not stop there. As a founding member and later president of the Royal Academy, he mentored artists like John Singleton Copley, Gilbert Stuart, shaping the generation of American painters. Benjamin West wasn't just an artist, he was a teacher and a visionary. He helped create the very institutions that would carry art into the future, both in Britain and back home in America. Though he spent most of his life in England, West never forgot his American roots. His painting, Penn's Treaty with the Indians, is a tribute to his homeland, reflecting the place of diplomacy of William Penn's early Pennsylvania. West's final years were marked by his focus on religious works like Christ Healing the Sick, which he gifted to a hospital in Philadelphia. His connection to the colonies, now the United States, remained strong to the very end. Benjamin West passed away in 1820, leaving a legacy that transcended borders. He was a painter who bridged nations, shaping the visual histories of both America and Britain. His innovation in historical painting, his role in founding the Royal Academy, and his membership of future American artists make him a towering figure in the art history. Benjamin West, the boy from Pennsylvania who became one of the most important artists of his time, forever remembered as the painter who bridged nations. This has been a brief portrait of Benjamin West, brought to you by Urban Indian Heritage Society. Thank you for listening, and hope you enjoy your Indigenous Peoples Day 2024.
Thank you so much for that, brother.
Appreciate you.
I'll show the painting before we but it's a beautiful landscape here, and I know it's very expensive to go to this school, but it is absolutely beautiful. This don't look like a bad place to learn. That's all I'm saying. So again, back to the guinea, right? And now we also got some other maps again going forward as we start these new, because there's going to be a couple of parts to it, especially we're going to have to find out who these mystery Africans are, because so far these Africans keep going back to Europe before they even touch the interior. So when they saying somebody's African, it's an African word, Afrikaner. Again, and Afrikaner itself go back to the Dutch, right? Again, Europe. So to speak any African languages, you're speaking different dialects of Dutch, not some original language. And you know what? Somewhere in the series, we're going to have to talk about those beautiful Khoi people. The Khoi people that settled into Africa and are also known to be the oldest that was there. But if you go and study what their language is, it's Latin and click noises. Latin and now when you're clearing the back of your throat. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Latin and click noises. Latin and click noises. I'm doing my Umar Johnson. Latin and click noises. Okay? Go look it up. So if you could speak Latin, right? I'm just saying. Van Vidivici with a couple of clicks. You speaking couple of clicks. But so far, African is Dutch. And these Dutch happen to be descendants of these Italians that happen to be related to some Germans that are also related to these British and these Portuguese. And then we're not going to forget Putin's people. Right. Because Putin's people, you got to remember Siberia has Iberia in it. And we're going to walk through these different families. So at any time when they want to take the words black back, they can, because black means pale.
To lighten.
When they want to take white back, white means full of guilt and blame. They might not want to take that back. But African, well, Afrikaans, Elon Musk, they speak Afrikaans. And they descend from Afrikaners. Mm-hmm. And Afrikaners come from Rome. The Romani Negroes of Negro land, they didn't all look like Wesley Snipes. These Negroes of Negro land ended up being free white people. We're going to have a good time dissecting a lot of this stuff. And if we got to go back again to the foundational, what is black, what is white, and etymology, in case you forget, black power is really pilgrim power. And well, white power is pretty much the same thing as black power, because it's only pointing out the people that are full of guilt and blame for things going wrong in the world. The etymology tells you who these people are, whether you understand that Spanish and British and these are just different nationalities, don't mean they're not cousins and got the same grandma. A lot of their civil wars, a lot of their fights ended up spilling into our shores. So, I know how they're going to feel about a thing, but this is also going to be the proof and the reason why in all these years of you knowing and hearing about Pan-Africanism and pro-Blackism and all of that, you've never seen an official map of Kemet. You've never seen an official map of Kemet.
You've never seen an official picture of the founders of Pan-Africanism. They don't look like you and me.
They most certainly don't. So when they make it about skin color, you can't do that. It's about bloodline. And it's really, really important that you pay attention to that. Not just assume that everybody Black is your brother, and not just assume that everybody white is your enemy. Black and whites can very well be the exact same people. No doubt about it. Pale, Black means pale. So the more Black you feel, the more you feel like empowering the people that you're calling white. But they'll keep that white title because white, technically, white, W-I-T-E, W-I-G-H-T, is full of guilt and blame, not W-H-I-T-E. But W-H-I-T-E tells you that whenever that word was getting used, that was at the place of the division. Well, what division? What division between Europeans, this side of the Dutch, the Habsburg side to the Germanic side?
The Dutch East Indies side down there at the Cape of Good Hope. Because that was under Spanish Netherlands too, under Rome of Orange, right?
Absolutely.
White and Black.
I don't think they understand that. William Orange, because that's in the 1600s. And you know, sometimes we fly through the timelines because we are experts, right? Not only and I know I can do it because I can always pull out a grandparent. If I'm talking about the 1400s, I could go to my tree and get somebody from the 1400s to ground me so I know where I'm at, right? So for other people, I do apologize. It may be a little difficult to follow. I promise all these things are relative in scope, even if they are over the span of 200 years. They still going back to the same people and still require an explanation. Who are these African people? If the first Africans come from the Afri people, the Afrikaners, there's no language that these so-called ancient Africans speak except Afrikaans. And Afrikaans happens to be relative to the Dutch, the same place where the words Black and white came from. You got to believe me. Let's run through the etymology and get mad at them. And it's not like they won't change it, right? It's not like they, and look, this is funny.
They changing stuff in real time on us right now.
Look at, isn't this funny? Because the Indonesian technically is the Aryan, right? They are the Aryan. And this word here, Aryan, Indonesian name for New Guinea, said to mean literally cloud covered. I wasn't even looking for that and happened to come to that, right? Because they were going on to New Guinea. So again, you know, this New Guinea is populated by who? The people from France. From France. Same thing, Ghana too. So now when they start testing all these Ghanaian kings and stuff like that, what did Fatu say? They going back, they have Italian blood, right?
Yes, man. One of my favorite political economists Gerald Salente, he runs the Trends Journal. He refers to himself as that. And he's Italian, man.
Interesting.
Olive complected, curly hair. Yeah, I'm not going to say it, but yeah, that's what he refers to himself as.
Well, speaking of refer to themselves, didn't we see the girl talk about South African and she said she considered herself white and the other lady kept insisting, no, but you're an Afrikaner.
Yes.
And she's like, yeah, I've never really been around black folks to consider myself black. I figured I'd probably have me a white husband, but I always consider myself a white woman. And she says, oh, but you're an Afrikaner. And as she's telling this woman who identifies as white, as she's telling her she's an Afrikaner, she's further confirming the girl's position and why she's saying she is white, why she identifies as white. Right, and it has nothing to do with her skin color.
It's a status, political status.
Exactly. So as the other girl is insisting, calling her an Afrikaner, as if that was supposed to snap her out of, the idea of being white, when really whiteness is not about the color of your skin, it's who you're related to and where they happen to come from. Not the same thing. Very interesting, nonetheless. Very interesting. But the guineas, y'all had enough? Y'all want to go back to the word black? We got to go back to the word black. And the reason why we go back to the word black, because I need people to see that its origin starts in Germany somewhere. It doesn't start in Africa. There couldn't be no Africa without the white man. I want to make sure we make that clear. So when they say that, when Umar says he's the Prince of Pan-Africa,
the Prince of
Pan-Africa, everywhere around Africa, because the original Africa belonged to the white man. The Italians, do they not want to acknowledge any European ancestry? They think they just pure Mandingo. The Mende come from Germany.
You notice he always references Frederick Douglass and never references Melville Herskowitz, the true king,
father of
Pan-Africanism, a Jewish gentleman. Yeah.
Yep. They never do. I don't know why. They certainly never indicated that, there may be some sort of Europeans involved, especially when it comes to Africa. They damn sure didn't say nothing about, this being the descendants of these Romans that took over. And where did their slaves end up going? Because when Magellan sailed the straits, right? And he got to the Pacific and stuff like that, you know who Magellan dropped off in the 1500s? Magellan dropped off Cartagena. Cartagena, the last name, the name in itself, so-called Don Cartagena, wasn't a Don at all. He was a goddamn prisoner from North Africa. Of mixed descent. It could be Greek, Italian, and Berber descent.
Now, wait a minute, Phoenix. Cartagena, doesn't that have the same root as Carthage? Of the gentleman Hannibal?
Yes.
That fought the Romans?
The Punic Wars. That's right. Scipio Africanus.
So he dropped those folks off.
Yes, he did.
Oh, okay.
Yes, he did. And they like to say he came riding in on an elephant. Where's the elephants at in North Africa? Where did he come from? India? Where the elephants at in Morocco?
They said he came over the Alps.
Where the elephants at in Egypt?
Yeah, you just know wherever he got them from far away, but we just know he crossed over the Mediterranean. Like he got.
Listen, crossing the Mediterranean would have been a super big deal to these people. Would have been a super big deal. Because as it stands right now, they could swim. Hercules, the Pillars of Hercules over there in the Gibraltar, that nigga could have swam to Africa and back.
Absolutely.
Spanish territory. There's still parts of Morocco to this day that are absolutely, you step foot in here, you're in France. You step foot over there, you're in Spain. You put your left foot in and your right foot out, and you're in goddamn Morocco. Put another foot in and you're in Algeria. Same
Personalized
sandwich.
animals.
Same sandwich. And they like to make it to seem like, you know, Hannibal was this black man. But hey, are you sure about that? When you say black, meaning was he enslaved, fighting being enslaved, or taxed by the Romans at that time? Right? With respect to knowing that they confuse the timeline. So you can't pay attention to their 1500 BC and Anno-Domini 1208. That could have been our year 1000. And I'm gonna tell you, let me show you right now. Let me go get the oldest map of Africa.
And then Moon, when they talk about Rome, which Rome are they talking about? Are they talking about the Roman monarchy? Are they talking about the Roman Republic? Are y'all talking about the Roman Empire? Are y'all talking about fallen Rome? Are you talking about the Holy Roman Empire?
Right.
It's more, yeah, like Rome got multiple like edges and everything, just like you got different Michael Jacksons, you got different Romes and everything.
That's right.
Which era was you talking about?
That's facts. Okay, hold on.
That map gonna rock your socks.
Here we go. Let's go back to this map. And then I'm also, you know, I've been showing this map. I've been showing this map since probably like 2015, 2016. It's just one of my favorite pieces, just because it's art. But please don't ignore, you can get this from Princeton, but do not ignore the inscription and the bibliography that they have attached to this, that Princeton has, especially in respects to Prester John. So if you know the story of Prester John, you definitely want to make sure you pay this map some mind. Hold on, let me get it up for you. Right. And you got to understand, the only places named Africa was in this tiny ass little circle right here. Not the whole continent. Oh, come on. Here we go. All right, visit anyway. Thank you. Make sure y'all Jabberwockies don't jab my radar no more. Here we go. Africa, right here near what was that? Carthage.
Mm-hmm.
Carthage.
North Africa.
Wait a minute. Doesn't it look like Spain? Well, that's really technically Portugal over here, right?
Yes.
And Spain, I don't know. They're two fighting each other. Spain is inside Portugal, or Portugal's inside Spain. But both of them bitches is in Africa.
And both of them is the Iberian. Yeah. You can swim right across the street.
Completely interesting. So here, 10 nautical miles away, you have Barbaria, right? And these are the Negroes, the West African, the so-called Negroes that came through, also, which includes Moors, right? From Mauritania, absolutely included in the Amazighs and Berbers that were brought to South Carolina, right? South Carolina was the first stop for some, but not all, because they had already been in Europe. Now they're settled down in this northern provinces of Africa that aren't established yet. And then they get enslaved again because Spain and the Holy Roman Empire could not deal with slavery below I forget which parallel it was, but they weren't allowed to deal with sub-Saharan, right? Other countries had dibs in what they can do in sub-Saharan, but they could not. The Spanish couldn't. Therefore, the people that were surrounded in Egypt, all of those other folks around the Mediterranean that got in their way, right? Again, from Africa here, the real Africa, not the continent. You see all these other kingdoms here? None of these kingdoms down here are speaking Africa.
Look,
they're not speaking African. And then you got the white folk down here in South Africa. Here go Mr. White folk. And you know, a lot of these folks got a lot of questions and answers, but none of them want to answer who this dude right here. You can ask them anything you want about Africa. They'll tell you any story you'd like to hear, except one about One-Eyed Jack right there. I'm pretty sure that's who the Arabs was calling the one-eyed monster. I'm pretty sure that's where the one-eyed monster comes from. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. The green-eyed monster at that. I ain't even got time to blow it up. He kind of ugly. And be careful, y'all, because this map, again, get it from Princeton, because if you start looking for this particular print, and this is a Wildemüller map from either 1550, somewhere between 1550 and 1570. Go look at the new map that they trying to blackwash now. And that one-eyed nigga in the middle of the map, the one-eyed white man, is looking like Franklin from Charlie Brown right now. Okay? So they trying to black him out. Now, I can assure you, common sense, don't let it escape you, right? For all this other technical stuff. And the reason I'm going to say so, you see that Cyclops right there? And then go and look up, that's modern day Cameroon. Simple science. I'm going to show you how to do this real simple. Modern day Cameroon. Go and look at the Label tribe and those kingdoms that are there. And as they tell you that they got there 600-700 years ago, they tell you they got there from Persia. They got there from India. They're saying they came from Yemen, from Oman. They was not originally in Africa, but they settled there. And the Label tribe in particular, he said that they got there 600-700 years before the Khoi people. So that means the Khoi settled there too from somewhere else. So now we're going into Africa and not out of it. We're going into Africa and not out of it. Umar, we're going into Africa and not out of it. Okay, so now go back to where these conditions are. If you look up cyclopsia, monoculism, you know, those things that where you have one eye, it don't necessarily mean dead in the center of the head like one-eyed Jack right here, but that condition is only prevalent in where? India. Go and look where in the world people have cyclopsia. They have it in India and they have it in modern day Cameroon. They got it where the people came from. They got it where the people settled. Boop. What we talking about here? Simple. Do I need to be a haplogroup singer or specialist of what's the S&Ps? No, common sense. Go and look at where that condition is present. So now, because you have the pale man on there, they'll make him seem like he a myth. When no, sir, he's not a myth. He's the admixture of your Aryan. Remember, Aryans and Caucasians could not be included as free white people in the United States. So this is how you had niggas black as Wesley Snipes that was included as free white people.
Which is why they had to go through the Get White Club and naturalize in 1870 during Reconstruction.
Absolutely. And that's for those that missed the memo back in the 1740s, because the Negro Act in South Carolina tells them that they have to whiten up. You better whiten up and you better get it down to at least 1/8, and we might consider calling you white. If not, you get ready to get turned up like these Indians and the rest of these folks. They was trying to get rid of that complexion, and they had a problem here. Not only did they have a problem here, because, and this is also how you knew that these men, these European men, looked a lot like our indigenous men, right? They looked a lot like them. And then there's these Europeans that were enslaved here, and they, what did they do? End up starting to have babies with Negroes, getting 30 lashes. Right? Especially in Maryland, the state of Maryland differed from a lot of the other places because it was a paternal state. So there was so many of them foreign Englishmen putting a pencil in these indigenous sharpeners that they was losing control of their lord proprietorship. So now they don't have to be subjects to Great Britain, because if I marry this woman right here, she the chief squaw of this tribe, her daddy is the king. I could get away from you. Or maybe I could play middleman since you don't know their language, and I could probably, you know, get some respect from the King of England, right? As a liaison, AKA interpreter. Mm-hmm. Get me a couple of government contracts with my NGO self.
Let me holler at Lord Baltimore. Yeah.
Lord Proprietor Baltimore. These swarties. Oh, man. I guess we're going to have to run through these swarties, Doc. Well, again, back to these Dutch. We ain't going to let them off the hook, because now you got to go back. Did y'all look up that condition of that cyclopsia yet? You see that the people that have it are in India, where the same African tribe says that they came from 500-600 years ago. So how do you, the American Negro, have West African DNA and you don't match none of the West African niggas because the West African people ain't from West Africa? You ever wonder why that was strange? And how you going to be 3, 4, 9, 11 different types of West African? Right? And I'm asking that because from state to state, country to country, there still should be relativity by proximity. I could walk from here to California, right?
Right.
You just now, New York is my country. I'm in another country, Pennsylvania, right now, but I got family in New York, in another country, people in California, people in Jersey. Those are all separate countries and jurisdictions. What makes other people with different nationalities? I'm a New Yorker. They're Pennsylvanians. That's a different nationality, technically, even though we all Indians. Those are different nationalities. What makes these people different? What's their heritage and ethnicity? Because one thing's for sure, two things for certain. The culture could change based off of your location, but one thing that will never, ever, ever change, doesn't matter where you go, there you are, and that is your heritage. Heritage is absolutely constant. Ethnicity is absolutely separate from nationality. Y'all want to get back to these Guinea Negroes? Because somebody got some explaining to do. And a lot of times it's very difficult to have these conversations. And we're not like the FBA that sit there and talk junk to other ethnic groups because of what they don't know. What we actually do is encourage you to find out. And you might not want to have conversations that go deep with us, especially if you are not willing to take the risk, not the risk, to take the effort to start digging into your family tree. It's not just exclusive to us because we're here and we know we're American Indian. Everybody got a grandma and grandpa. How many of yours do you know? We all have the same amount. How many of yours have you studied? To what levels?
I want to read something real quick. Did I read from regarding Sir Robert Carr yet?
No, please do.
Okay. This is from the History of Delaware County. And this is on page 12. I'm going to pick up right here where it talks about Robert Carr coming to the States. It says, the loss on our part was none. The Dutch had 10 wounded and 3 killed. The fort is not tenable, although 14 guns and without a great charge, with unevidently must be expended here, will be no stand. We not being able to keep it. We learned from Colonel Nichols' report to the Secretary of State that the storming party was commanded by Lieutenant Carr and Ensign Hook, and notwithstanding, the Dutch fired 3 volleys at them. Not a man in their ranks was wounded in the assault. Sir Robert Carr, it seems, stayed aboard the Guinea, which was their warship, until the fort was captured. When he landed and claimed that the property in the fort, having been won by the sword and his troops, all of the soldiers and many of the citizens of New Amstel were sold as slaves to Virginia by the English conquerors, and most of the Negroes belonging to the Dutch settlers were distributed among the captors, as were also 100 sheep, 40 horses, 60 cows, and oxen. Land and estates were confiscated and granted by Sir Robert Carr to his officers, as well as the commanders of the vessels which took part in the expedition to Delaware. When the standard of the great Britain floated from the Flagstaffs over the captured Dutch forts on the Hudson and the Delaware, it marked the supremacy of the Anglo-Saxon race on the North American continent. And as the authority was then exercised from Maine to Florida on the Atlantic coast by a homogenous people, it was made possible that the great nation that was born to the world a century later. It was singularly fortunate at this juncture that the unbridled executive power in the new province was confided to so prudent and an able man as Colonel Richard Nichols proved to be, whose administration was so wise and impartial that it enforced a universal peace. I'll just read this last two sentences. On the Delaware, the Swedes, who had therefore been held as a subjugated people, were in every respect benefited by the change, and even the Dutch settlers had reason to be glad that the tyrannical sway of Stuyvesant had ended. In May 1667, Francis Lovelace succeeded Colonel Nichols, and has been said by an able writer, quote unquote, under Governor Lovelace, the work adjusting the government of the Delaware so as bring it slowly but steadily into conformity with the English law progressed systematically year by year until it was received an unexpected check in 1673. That would have been before Wilma Orange came to power, by the total but temporary suspension of the English authority incident to the second conquest of the country by the Dutch.
Now, why do you bring up William of Orange? Why is he important? Is as we talk about these Habsburgs, right? Because you got the Italio Porto, Spaniard, Franco, Russian mix. Like it's like one big European. You know how they try to make us one big Indian, one big nigga? You got one big European exploding into a bunch of little pieces, and they always fighting to get the big piece of chicken. Although this chicken wasn't nowhere near their proximity. They traveled thousands of miles and subjugated thousands of people to get this chicken. That ain't their chicken. And somehow they're also related to the people that have nowhere in the world to go. They have nowhere in the world to go. And everywhere that they did go, they took this black and white thing with them and infected the people. And then the next thing you know, none of the people remember who they are. And the only thing they remember is that they once owned the land, now they ain't got none. They remember the faces of their people, and now it's just a distant memory. And we're fighting our way to get back. I think that pretty much goes for everybody all across the globe, because these people were homeless globally, and they made sure they took over everywhere they went. They brought their stories. They tried to preserve it. Try to make you forget things in the interim, even based off of the things that you already believed. You knew when you read the Bible that Jacob and Esau was brothers. What would change that? They came out the same womb, same parents. Nothing would change that, whether one got kicked out and sent somewhere else and populated. And I just want to understand how these same people got kicked out everywhere. And every time they went somewhere, they don't like to talk about the women because they got different mammies. They got different mammies. And generally, with the exception of like Arab countries, it's so as the mother, so is the child. You notice these only particular groups had to spin it and kind of make it about patriarchy to insert themselves, only to make it about matriarchy on the inside. And I'm talking about the people with the smaller hats than this and the Shirley Temple sideburns, little curls. Let's get back to this black and white. Y'all done seen the guineas is Italian, right? And we're going to go back to black and white because the Dutch, the German, Dutch, German, synonymous with each other. They're not getting out of it. Let's go to black. Because you know they love to be black, y'all. And that's a fact, y'all.
Black.
Bliggity, bliggity, black.
Black. Black.
And let's get into it. Don't
Black.
get mad at me.
Black.
Get mad at the etymology. This
Black.
long before we was here, okay? Long before you and I or anybody watching this broadcast was here. The words, the meaning, the etymology to black was absolutely available. You want to talk about they didn't want niggas to read? Well, they didn't want you to read etymology because they didn't mind how many out of Africa books you read. They had, you was the deepest Negro. You was the deepest. How long your dashiki was, you was deep. The longer the dreads, the more sense you look like you had, right? You look like you ate clean, right? You just, right? These are certain things you expect, right? They signify certain things. You think of a more spiritually righteous person, you see somebody with dreadlocks. Seriously, not dread, the way they made it seem like terror, right? Well,
I love my locks. I don't dread them.
You know what I'm talking about? You know what I'm talking about? So let me show y'all right here. Like I said, you don't get mad at me. I didn't make none of this up. Been trying to tell y'all that every time you get your feelings hurt with the California reparations and all of that, you got niggas in Georgia mad at California reparations. They ain't in the fight for Georgia reparations until that cloud passes them by, right? They're not going to get active. They just going to be all up in the California mix without no residency, no ID. You're not in a voting district, nothing. Like I just, it's a waste of time.
And here's my indictment. And I don't have no horse in the fight for reparations like that. That don't include my family. You know, as American Indians, we more pro restitution. But the thing that I've asked folks is, in those type of civil proceedings, we've learned from you, Moon, you have to have evidence, truth, proof, and fact in the court of law. So for all the past 3, 4, 5 years, we've been saying, you got to do your genealogy, and you might want to, know who your family is on the maternal and paternal side. You have to be able to show and prove, and be able to what's the word they like to use nowadays? Delineate where that quote unquote enslaved person was,
right? And
also show and prove that they were in the jurisdiction of modern day California and everything. And a lot of folks aren't able to do that. Right. The second thing that folks aren't able to do, all the people we was talking about earlier, the Dutch Afrikaans, and Elon Musk and Grimes and Charlize Theron, so they want to get their check too, right?
That's right.
Like Elon was, he just moved to Texas, but yeah, Tesla was in California, so Elon gonna get his reparations check on racks on racks on racks. I'm black.
Let's not forget the Russian Creoles that was in California for 200 years before California was even California. Russian Creoles, and that's the swarty Europeans from the Russian extraction, right? Check them out. They was there. They didn't make up black Russian, white Russian. They made up alcoholic drinks.
Mm-hmm. Russian cream.
Russian cream. What's Russian cream? If it ain't dipped in cocoa. Hey now, what they say.
And who are the Dutch masters?
Who are the Dutch masters? And the Dutch masters, they ain't even coming from Dutch. They coming from Dominican Republic. Shots fired.
Just like Fidel Castro coming from, where are you coming from? Italy?
The Borgias.
The Borgias.
He's from the Borgias. Did y'all know Fidel Castro was related to White Jesus? Caesar Borgias from the House of Borgia, the one that did the model for Michelangelo.
Yeah, the Pope's nephew or what? Yeah, that boy, Council of Trent, all that. Yeah.
Who would have known? All this time, Fidel Castro descends from the true Spanish. Well, they ish now. I don't know what happened to the Spaniards. They ain't Spaniards no more. They Spanish.
Like black-ish. Or
the same thing with the small hats. They not juicy, they juice-ish. They ain't juicies no more, they juice-ish. Right? It's an ish at the end. They like something,
Mm-hmm.
Juice say.
right? So let's go back to Black. Let's read it loud and clear.
Mm-hmm.
The adjective. Old English, Blake, absolutely dark, absorbing all light of the color of soot or coal. Reconstructed to be from Proto-Germanic. Proto-Germanic.
Mm-hmm.
Blackers, burned, source of Old Norse, blacker, dark, Old High German, blah, black, Swedish, black, ink, Dutch, blacken, to burn. From PIE, that means Proto-Indo-European, bleg, to burn, gleam, shine, flash, source also of Greek flame, to burn, scorch, Latin, flagrer, to blaze, glow, burn. Well, if the Latins came up with Negro, and that just meant dark, what's their word for this shit? Because it ain't Negro. So to blaze, to glow, to burn, what's the Latin word for that? Oh, they don't know. It's just black on black on black. Okay, okay now. From the root, bell, to shine, flash, burn. The usual Old English word. Well, now what the hell's Old English? And I get confused, and I'm going to stop there because Old English is subject to scrutiny. Because what is Old English?
Old English ain't even Old English. What we say, the Magna Carta, not even
the Magna Carta
English.
is not. That's one of their old documents. The Magna Carta is a British English document. It's not written in English.
1251, right?
1251.
1251.
Yeah, 1251. It's not written in English. So what's Old English?
And it's after the Great Charter of Peace. So,
and the English came after the Anglo-Saxons and the Romans conquered the Brits, the Britons. So what's Old English? Let me continue. It's the hijack.
Oh,
the
black
same
was word for swart.
Swart. Oh, we're going to get to that too. For swart. The same root produced Middle English Blake, pale. Pale. Told y'all black means pale. From Old English Blake, bright, shining, glittering, pale. The connecting notions being perhaps fire, bright and burned, dark, or perhaps absence of color. According to Oxford English Dictionary, in Middle English, it is often doubtful whether black, Blake means black, dark, or pale, colorless, wan, livid, and the surname Blake can mean either one of pale complexion or one of dark complexion. Black was used of dark-skinned people in Old English, of coffee, with nothing added, attested by 1796. The meaning, fierce, terrible, wicked, is from the late 14th century. The figurative senses often come from the notion of without light, moral or spiritual. Latin, Niger, had many of the same figurative senses: gloomy, unlucky, bad, wicked, malicious. The metaphoric use of the Greek word melas, however, tended to reflect the notion of shrouded in darkness, overcast. In English, it has been the color of sin and sorrow, at least since circa 1300. The sense of with dark purposes, malignant, emerged in the 1580s in Black art, necromancy. It is also in the sense of black magic. Black drop was a liquidation prepared in opium, and medicinally, black fly 1600 was a name given to various insects, especially an annoying pest in the Northern American woods. Black Prince as a nickname of the oldest son of Edward III. Edward III, Black Prince. He ain't the first one. They was calling King James' son tall black boy while he was on the run too, but okay. The exact signification is uncertain. I bet we could probe a little more, but let them rock with that. You get what they saying. And they telling you who's saying it, from whose perspective, okay? Black flag flown especially by pirates as a signal of no mercy is from the 1590s. Black dog melancholy is attested from 1826. Black belt is from 1870 in reference to district extending across the U.S. South with the heaviest African population. And also times in some reference to the fertility of the soil. It is attested from 1913 in the judo sense, worn by one who has attained a certain high degree of proficiency. Black power is from 1966, associated with Stokely Carmichael. Black English as spoken by African Americans is by 1969. The Black Panther 1965 movement was an outgrowth of Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. Black Studies is attested from 1968. Black the verb, intransitive, to become black. Early 14th century, transitive, make black, darken, put a black color on, from black, adjective, especially clean and polished boots, shoes, etc., by blacking and brushing them, 1550s. Black, the noun, Old English, black, the color black, also ink, from noun, use of black. It is attested from the late 14th century as dark spot in the pupil of the eye. The meaning dark-skinned person. African is from 1620s. Okay, so wait a minute now. It took them to the 1620s to find an English word for dark skin.
Yeah.
It took them all that time to find the word to describe these dark-skinned people they were so-called enslaving. A dark-skinned person, African, is from 1600s, perhaps late 13th century, and blackamoor is from the 1540s. The meaning black clothing, especially when worn in mourning, is from 1400. To be in black and white, meaning in writing or in print, is from the 1650s. White and black is from 1590s. The notion is of black characters on white paper. In the visual arts with no colors but black and white. It is by 1870 of sketches, 1883 of photographs. To be in the black, 1922 is from the accounting practice of recording credits and balances in black ink. And I'm going to stop there. You're going to catch up with us for part 2. And we're going to dip back into this and see if these European peoples is the original blacks and the original whites. And who are these Afrikaners? Why do they got relativity to the Dutch and to Europe? And why nobody wants to talk about it? It's been beautiful. I hope y'all enjoying y'all Indigenous Peoples Weekend. We're going to be here in Pennsylvania all weekend long. Beautiful day here at Swarthmore. It would have been nice if y'all came. We definitely had a beautiful set going on over here. We'll catch up with y'all. We might go live a little later. Right now, it's time to fellowship, go out and get some supper and all of that. We coming back with part 2, and we're going to finish off with the black, and we're going to finish off with the white. And ain't going to be no way around it. You might as well come back and get this history lesson. If you have any questions, anything you disagree on, save it for the next one. We'll be back, maybe in a couple of hours, definitely tomorrow. That's for sure. You got questions? Write them down. I know people is going to be mad about the etymology of black and what that mean and la. And we got more. Don't let me convince you. Read for yourself. Get your own understanding. So all that's necessary. Love y'all like cooked food. It was wonderful seeing y'all. Glad y'all pulling up. Lock this channel in. If you ain't subscribed, share that. Hit the like button. Share this channel. Let's get this channel shaking. Yes, indeed.
Let's run them numbers up, y'all.
Run them numbers up. Right on. Hey, got
Appreciate
cousin
that,
Sun
y'all.
Spirit on the drums and good brother June on the flute. We'll be back a little later. If not us, then when? That if not now, then when? And if not us, then who? We're gonna bring you the truth. We're gonna bring this genealogy from a non-biased but super true perspective. Like it or not, we repping grandma and grandpa business. Love you very much. Enjoy yourselves. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. Till the next time. Chipi Salachi K.
Chipi Salachi K and Nana.
Chippy Selassie.